welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is the recap and the aftermath of the trial of the Menendez brothers. So we've been through California versus Erik and Lyle Menendez, the trial, basically gavel to gavel. We've watched it, and um, now we are going to I'm going to give you guys some follow up as to where they are now, the Menendez brothers themselves. In a future episode, I will go through other key players throughout the trial that we saw, key witnesses, uh, the legal teams, the judge. We'll go over like where are they now for that, and then finally we'll go over in another episode the habeas corpus petition. I'll read through it as that is the petition that's up against or up for um, review from the Supreme Court because they have appealed their case to basically vacate their conviction because new evidence has come in. So we'll get into all of that as we go along. Please hit the like button if you don't mind. I always forget to say that. So please, please, please do that for me. All right. So let me shrink myself here. All right. So we are going to first be picking up kind of where we left off. So we went through in the last stream, we went through the final portion of the closing arguments, and then I kind of did a recap as to the mistrial, then the second trial, and how they got convicted with the second trial. So in 1996 is when they were convicted. So the trial that we just watched was 1993. So they sat and waited another 2 to 3 years to go to trial again after that mistrial. And so they'd been sitting, let's see, they were arrested, I think, 90. So they'd been sitting in prison for about 6 years at this point. All right, so March 21st, 1996, Lyle and Erik are both convicted of 2 counts of first-degree homicide. This is from Town and Country. I'm going to be going back and forth from article to article and stuff. You'll see, and we'll play some video too. So 1996, here we are, the brothers, sorry, I really don't mean to infantilize them and call them the boys, but it's just habit, especially when they were called that throughout the trial. But anyways, so I'm going to try to refer to them as the brothers instead. So if I catch myself, sorry. All right, so Lyle and Erik convicted 1996. They are well, this is March. Okay. So I have a point. I'll get to it later. As the trial wound to a close, the judge, Stanley M. Weisberg, ruled that the A excuse argument could not be used at all. The ruling essentially forced jurors to decide between letting the brothers off entirely or convicting them of homicide, according to the New York Times. The Times also reported that at that time, the jury accepted the prosecution's argument that the pair executed their mother and father in order to tap into the family fortune, rejecting the defense's contention that it was done as a response to the maltreatment that they were receiving at the hand of their parents. So this is interesting because the prosecution actually did go to a grand jury and presented evidence to this grand jury and tried to indict them on whatever charge is related to, doing this for, money type of thing. I don't know what the exact charge would be, but they tried to charge them on, you know, homicide with the intent of robbery. I don't know. I don't know whatever the statute was that they were going to use, but they tried to get that on the boy. They tried to pin another charge on them. So that was actually um, denied by the grand jury. They didn't see the evidence to support that, and therefore it wasn't really supposed to come into trial, but somehow Judge Weisberg allowed it into trial, which he's a problem in and of itself. So here we are. They are not, they've been told that they're guilty, but they haven't been sentenced yet. And we're at this point in time, I'm going to flip us over to a different screen and we're going to watch. This is 1996. They just found out. This is June 28th, 1996. They just found out the following month after this is the following month after they were just found guilty. Haven't been sentenced yet, but they anticipate, you'll hear them say even that they anticipate that they will be in prison for life. So let me unmute it, and here we go.
What went through your mind?
This is Barbara Walters, and she was like pretty much one of the key news anchors out there, or reporter, whatever you want to call her, who would interview lots of people on their show. I don't know if it's Dateline or whatever show it was on. I can't remember. But she would always make a lot of people cry, so everybody, joked that she made people cry. But yeah, she was always the one doing these interviews. She's pretty iconic from the 90s.
When you heard that verdict, first degree murder, guilty.
That I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison without any possibility of ever getting released.
See, the minute they heard the guilty verdict, they didn't think that they'd ever get out of prison. And you know what? To me, that means that they were probably prepared well by their attorneys to know that, because knowing what your charges are and what the sentences could be afterwards, that's an important part of, educating your client as well, to make sure that they're not lost in the process and they know that they know what to be prepared for, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And you're devastated. I was devastated.
Could have been death. Did you think that?
I was terrified that they would give either one of us death, and it's scary.
It's important to you to stay together when you get moved to the state prison?
Very important. That is what's gotten us through these 6 years and through our life. The family that Erik and I grew up in, we had to be there for each other throughout, and it really created a bond that gets us through very rough periods.
Some people might say, why should we put them together? I mean, look what they did. They should be punished as much as possible. Let's separate them. What do you say to that? You know people will say that, some.
There's nothing to say to that. What we did, it was awful, and I wish I could go back. We will spend the rest of our life in prison, but if we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again, and that some things that you cannot take, and there's some things that you can endure. With everything taken away, it would be the last, it's the last thing you can take.
Do you think the media has portrayed you fairly? Can you tell?
I don't know if anyone can be portrayed fairly in the media, who they are.
Well, let me say it. There are people, a great number of people, who think that you two are spoiled brats, that you are evil, that you are monsters. What do you say to them?
That's exactly how the media portrayed them the whole time. That's what they do now with suspects. And that's why it's so difficult, even if the individual that they have arrested is innocent, it's so difficult to prove that wrong, because people are just like innately believing that our law enforcement and our judicial system just works, and it's just, honest people doing it all. And it's not. It's very, very, very much not. And if we're not keeping an eye on our government, then they're going to be taking advantage of us as the people. So it's very important to keep an eye on them and to make sure that everyone is accountable. But yeah, including the media and how they report. and what the law enforcement gives to the media and how they allow them to report on cases. They really shouldn't be putting things out there as 100% fact when it isn't. And law enforcement does that all the time, which makes society think, "Oh yeah, they're guilty. They did it, and I don't even need to see anymore." So, it's just that's our society, and it was same as it is now, just social media makes it even worse. And now you got trolls that troll on it.
That's not who I am, but I can't defend that. Because I came from a family of wealth, it doesn't make me spoiled.
I would be surprised if anybody that was present at the trial and saw the whole thing rather than snippets on the news would feel that.
A jury found you both guilty.
Right, but I don't think you aren't guilty because they found you spoiled.
Or evil.
Or evil.
Just a normal, I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Erik, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Yeah, I know.
And you still say you're a normal kid?
Well, I didn't have normal experiences, but I am. I did that, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what happened and wish that I could take that moment back or change what happened. But it's hard to live with that.
Do you feel remorse?
Tremendous remorse. And I think
There's tremendous pain. I mean, from the second that I got back to the house after the shootings, I saw what happened and I said, this is wrong. This is awful. How could this have happened? I couldn't accept it.
You couldn't accept it, but you called the police. You pretended that you hadn't done it. You cried. You went off on a spending spree. I mean, we all read about it. You bought Rolexes, you bought cars, you didn't say, oh my God, what have I done, and turn yourself in.
Well, that's not really what
Well,
happened.
I've sort of stuck it all.
This is how media used to interview people. Nowadays, they don't, ask the hard questions, or they don't always, get um, uncomfortable. A lot of times, these interviews are just like soft puff pieces that we see on even like Dateline and stuff, where it's not really like pressing them on certain things. Barbara Walters used to do that. Certain reporters and journalists used to do that. And journalism and the media has kind of lost that edge when they try to push and get answers. But I don't like it here because I believe that the brothers are not innocent, but I believe that their actions were justified in the sense that it was an imperfect self defense. So, therefore, I don't think that they should have been given life in prison. But, anyways, I digress. Yeah, so you can see her style. Just notice it when next time you see like news pieces when they interview people, it's very puffy. It's very light and eerie. And nowadays, I don't know, just doesn't seem to be the same.
Together, but
Yeah, you did a good job at it. We got back to the house, the police were there, and it was a matter of telling him you did it or just saying, I don't know who did it. And that's what we did. And if I could go back, perhaps I'd say I did it.
I mean, part of that started from the fact that we waited afterwards, and the police did not come. And in that time that we waited and waited, we did make a bad decision to not have to.
We expected the police to be there. I mean,
you expected the police to come there and arrest you.
12 shots in the middle of Beverly Hills on a Sunday night, and no one calls the police. We're waiting at the house. No one shows up. And I still can't believe it.
So you called the police, but at that point you had already decided
We had decided
that
not
you
to.
weren't going to say anything.
We were very stunned, and we felt that we would go to jail, obviously, and it was a selfish reason to just not want to have to go through that.
What about spending the money? You know, cars, watches, invested in businesses, the good life.
Well, it was the same life before or afterwards.
With more money.
With more money, but I didn't know what to do with the money. It got to a point where I have all this money and so much pain. I don't know what to do with it, and eventually...
I don't know, you're losing me. I would think that you would be in such grief that you wouldn't be able to buy Rolexes and invest in businesses. Explain to me, let me understand. I'm the public.
I don't think that it's understandable. I mean,
I don't think the two are correlated. I mean, honestly, when you come from a family of wealth and all your material things are met, all your financial needs are met your whole life, and your dad and your mom, always provide for you. That's the one and only thing that Kitty and Jose did right, was they provided a house and shelter and clothing and sometimes food if they felt like it. Um, but for the most part, they were provided for. They had tennis lessons, they had swimming lessons, they had, I mean, all in appearances, it seemed like perfect family. But as we know, that's perception and reality are two totally different things.
people react to some traumatic event like that in different ways.
You went to your psychologist, Dr. Oziel, and told him that you had committed this crime.
It got to a point where I could no longer live. I felt that I was the worst person on earth, and it got to a point where I couldn't live with myself anymore, and I needed help. And so I went to him, and that is what the catalyst was for me getting arrested in Lyle.
You've had a lot of therapy.
6 years of intense therapy.
How are you different than the man who came in here?
I'm 6 years older. I'm a lot more mature. I came in here as an 18-year-old kid who didn't know anything about life.
What did you learn about yourself?
I learned I learned what love was about. I learned what love was about because of my grandmother, because of all my relatives who didn't say, "I can't believe you did this." Instead, they said, "Erik, I know who you are. You're not this type of person. You're not the type of person who could do this for no reason."
Have you had therapy, Lyle?
The same therapy, and it really works to just have someone you can communicate with that's willing to listen. All our lives, it was just sort of fending off things.
It almost sounds like prison was a good thing for you.
It was.
It was?
I mean, at first, I killed my parents, and I spent 6 months out there in horrible agony because I had done this. I mean, a year before, I told my mother how much I loved her. I could not have imagined doing this even a week before to her. I adored her. And then suddenly you're arrested, and everyone can know you did it, and you can finally tell people, and it's a relief.
Lyle, you're looking at your...
Remember, I mean, he said that on the stand too. It was a relief to be arrested because he finally wasn't carrying that burden anymore. So he was able to talk about it and deal with that grief. It was basically suffocating him. It was so heavy. So yeah, that's why he went to Dr. Oziel in the first place. I hate Dr. Oziel.
brother like you almost never heard this before. Tell me how you felt.
You know, for me, emotionally being in prison conditions was really not, emotionally was not a shocking difference from the life we had lived, because we lived really a very stressful, fearful life. And to me, it was kind of like I felt I should be punished. And it didn't feel good, but there was a part of you that feels like
That's right.
it's better.
You get a lot of mail?
We still get a tremendous amount of mail.
Hundreds?
We've gotten hundreds, thousands over the years.
We asked your lawyers to give us a sample of some of your letters. A great many of them seem to deal with from people who have been abused themselves and relate to you. Lyle, what do you say to people who write to you?
A lot of people that have written
Prisoners should have access to email. I know now they have tablets and they can call people from their cells, but like, do they have the access to email people? Because that would be so much better, more efficient, better for morale of prisoners if they were able to check emails and, write emails, because then it's more of an instant response. You don't have to wait days in the mail. It's just, I don't know. If anybody knows the answer to that, please let us know, because I find that to be interesting.
were um, very, they drew a lot of strength from watching the trial and from seeing Erik and I. And I've gotten mail after the verdict, people discouraged. And I wanted to say to them to not lose hope because of this one case and this one verdict. Very unique situation here, and that this does not mean that if they go get help, people won't believe them, or people will treat them harshly, or they'll be ridiculed. I don't feel they will be.
That's not to say do what we did. Don't do what we did, but don't be afraid
don't
of
be
getting
afraid of
help.
going for
People
help.
that want to reach out to social workers for help, but are ashamed or afraid.
Do you also get love letters?
Yeah, some.
Find that strange?
It's a strange phenomenon that a lot of love letters come in from people that don't know you at all.
Do either one of you have girlfriends? Do either one of you have someone who cares particularly about you now at this point in your life?
I do. I have
do?
someone who I love very much and is a saint to put up with everything that comes with this.
Can you tell us who she is?
Yeah, her name is Anna Erickson, and I hope that we can get married. Even though it's a very limited relationship because of where we are, the exchange of love and sharing, it keeps you in touch with yourself and softer, and otherwise you can become very hard and cold in here.
Is this someone you knew before prison?
Do these guys seem like cold-blooded, spoiled rich kids? Not to me.
No.
This is someone who began to write to you and meet you?
She wrote me many years ago, but and I've come to know her well, but just someone that I met through the mail.
And she wants to marry you?
And she does.
Erik?
All these boys talk about is like wanting to be loved and accepted and wanting to feel that true love because they never had it growing up. So sad that, you can tell that that's what is important to them because they both have brought it up that they have love now. Like they didn't before, but now they do. So that's a key factor.
Erik?
No, not at the moment.
You're not going to meet a lot in prison, Erik.
No, I probably won't. It's hard. Lyle's more able to have that type of relationship.
Erik, you know that the prosecutor brought up the fact that you might have been a homosexual and that this might have caused some of the fury on your father's part.
Yes, he did.
I didn't hear about girlfriends.
They were there.
I guess what I just have to say to you is, are you gay?
No. No, the prosecutor brought that up because
They're stupid.
I was sexually molested, and he felt in his own thinking that if I was sodomized by my father, that I must have enjoyed it, and therefore I must be gay.
Where does that line of thinking even come from? I don't understand, but there it is. And that was a big thing in the 90s too. Everybody thought Erik was gay. Like, so what if he was? And whose business is it anyways? Nobody should care. But that has nothing to do. Your sexual preference has absolutely nothing to do with your being SA'd by somebody. And your um who you normally gravitate to if you are attracted to the opposite sex. It doesn't matter who attacks you. Someone of the same sex could still attack you and it could still be SA. So it doesn't mean that you're automatically a homosexual. It doesn't That's such a antiquated, disgusting way to even think about it. And I don't know where that came from, but there it was.
Gay, and the people that are gay out there must be sexually molested or they wouldn't be felt. And it was upsetting to hear, but I'm not gay, but a lot of gay people write and feel connected to me.
A problem at the trial was the gender bias that because there we were dealing with males and in an incest family that there's sort of perceptions that, well, maybe it was something that he wanted, something that he allowed to happen, that he shouldn't be allowed to feel afraid because he's a
Stupid.
male. I really felt that people might have seen this case very differently if it were a sister that I was protecting or that was involved in this and not a brother.
Yeah.
You know, this whole business of abuse excuse, that you were abused by your parents, sexually abused, emotionally abused by this tough, unyielding father. But there are lots of people who are abused sexually in other ways and they don't kill their parents. And you've been ridiculed for this abuse excuse. What do you say about it?
Abuse excuse is a word that Alan Dershowitz made up, not knowing anything about the case.
Alan Dershowitz is a famous attorney. I can't remember. I think he might have been on OJ's legal team or something. I don't remember where he got his fame, but he came out with the a excuse term, meaning like, it's just an excuse and it didn't really happen when there's more evidence in this case than most cases of child and SA. So,
To simplify it to its simplest degree, if a person is raped, man or woman, and she kills the man who raped her, is it an excuse that the reason she killed him is because she was raped? Of course not. I certainly never felt that what I did was justified or right. It was just a question of how wrong was it.
That was a big misperception about this case, that it was about justification or excuse. And my brother and I essentially pled guilty. That was very hard for me to hear the ridicule about that because I really felt that Erik and I, we could have gone to trial like most people and just sort of, we weren't there, it wasn't
Lyle.
us, and had that trial.
What do you mean we could have gone to trial? We weren't there.
Well, you could go to trial and just say that I was, chipping golf balls at the time and I wasn't there. And Erik and I went to trial and said, we did this.
There were tapes. There were tapes.
Tapes became admissible because we said we did it. Lyle and I fought because he felt that telling the world that Dad was a sexual torturer was killing Dad twice, and he did not want to kill Dad twice. And he fought, and he said, I don't want to go up there, I'm not going to take the stand, I'm not going to do it. And then when he did, there was a great outpouring, but there was also people laughing at him, and it was strange.
Erik, you were able to tell your psychologist that you had killed your parents, but you were not able to tell your psychologist that your father had abused you?
Unless you've been molested, you can't realize how hard it is to tell.
Because of shame?
Because of shame.
unless you understand A and the effects of A, you really can't judge someone and the decisions that they make when they're afraid. So this irritates me.
The story continues now, the scene being set for murder.
Commercial break.
Describe your relationship with your father. What words come into your mind?
Brutal. Painful. Torturous. And yet I thought that he was the most powerful and brilliant person I had ever met.
How messed up is that to feel that way? But that's how your perpetrator wants you to feel. Like they're the only one in your life and They're the most amazing thing you've ever met, and you need to worship them 24/7. That's so, I mean, it lines up. But at the same time, that emotionally affects the individual that's being told you have to worship me and praise me and never go against me. And then eventually you grow to despise them, hate them, you resent them, whatever. Like anger starts building up. And you're going to feel that eventually if you bottle up your feelings at the time when they're trying to control you.
I was his firstborn son. That was very important to him. And my bond with him was, I thought, strong because we had been through so much together. But it was difficult to see the things that were going on. And
Things that were going on, that is, when you learned that he was sexually molesting your brother?
he had sexually molested me before I was a teenager. And it was a much different experience than Eric's.
Because you were little?
Because I was little, I guess.
You know, there are some questions that everybody asks, like, why didn't you run away?
I wish that I could have. I tried to run away when I was 12, and my father found me. He caught me and said, if you ever run away, I will kill you, I will find you, and I will kill you.
Suppose you...
So there you have it. For all those people that say, why don't you just leave? His father already told him, wherever you go, any day, any time, I will find you and I will bring you back home and I will hurt you. Physical harm will be done to you, if not loss of life. So why didn't they leave? That's why. Their father was so controlling and pervasive in their thoughts because of the mind control tactics that he uses, whether you want to call it that or not, that is what it is. And therefore, they're so afraid to leave. They can't. It terrifies them of the thought of leaving or terrifies them the thought of telling somebody because they were threatened. So, Jose, as you know, threatened them all the time. And this is one of those times. So, to anyone saying, well, why didn't you just leave? Or why didn't you, whatever, there were other options for you. Well, really? What? First of all, the parents were always doing everything for them, including their homework. So the boys, brothers, can't be very self-sufficient, if you know what I mean. Like the parents are always doing things for them, and they haven't really had that opportunity to grow outside of the life that they're in this tiny little bubble with these parents who are horrible to them. So they don't know that there's a world outside that's better. They don't even know that they can leave, basically. So that's what I'm getting at. So anyone who wants to say, well, someone in that situation should have done this. No, you don't know what they should have done, and you don't know what was going on in their minds. You don't know what was told to them. So I just don't judge people. That's all I'm getting at. Don't judge people for their decisions, especially people who have suffered, victims who have suffered from SA, CA, any kind of A.
left and you, I don't know what, became a waiter and moved away. You still thought he'd find you?
He would find me and probably kill me. I thought for certain he would kill me.
You still think that?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you love your mother or like your mother?
I loved my mother and I tried to help her. My mother was a person in a lot of pain, and she was alcoholic and she was suicidal.
Did she know about the abuse, the sexual abuse?
She knew.
And didn't do anything?
She knew, and it doesn't seem that she did anything.
Do you still think about the night of the murder?
Not only did she know, she let it happen. She resented her kids for it from happening because it was happening. Like she resented them for taking away her husband when it's her husband's fault, who's the sicko, who's decided to do this to her children, and she should have been protecting them because she's their mother. But, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Every day.
You both do? Tell me as clearly as you can why you murdered your parents that night.
first thing that comes to mind is terror. I was so afraid. A few days before, I had said to myself, I'm never going to let my father touch me again. After I told Lyle that it had been continuing on, I said to myself, I'm never going to let him touch me again. And just before the shootings, my dad told me to get to my room and that he would be there in a minute, and he was going to come up and there was going to be sex, and it was like an explosion in my mind.
But you'd bought the guns. It wasn't something that just happened that moment. You'd thought about it.
No.
You bought the guns in advance. They just weren't in the house.
Yes, we bought the guns in advance.
So this
We
didn't
bought the
just happen
guns.
that moment.
We bought the guns. There was a series of
Yeah.
confrontations and blow-ups in the house. My dad, when it first was revealed that I had told Lyle
Yeah.
about the secret, my dad said to Lyle, you're going to tell everyone, and I'm not going to let that happen.
Take me through your mind, Lyle.
I cannot separate and say this is why this happened. My father was threatening us, and so there was fear, but there was great, there was anger on my part, and my mother was aware of and had allied herself with my father, and there was a great deal of confusion. This happened all in just 3 days, and I wish I'd give anything to just turn back that one page of my life.
The other big question. You killed your father, who was molesting you. Why did you kill your mother?
On Thursday night before, in one of the explosions, I was running downstairs and I was crying, and my mother was on the couch and she had been drinking, and she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, nothing, you wouldn't understand. And she said, oh, I understand. What do you think, I'm stupid? And she told me that she knew, that she had known all my life what my father was doing. And it was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. And I just saw Dad and Mom as the same person at that point. I saw them as a single person.
Because they were united. They were. She was protecting him, not you, him. She chose her side. So therefore, she is united with Jose, and you and Lyle have to unite in order to protect one another.
And really the first time that this secret about what was happening with Dad and Erik was discussed openly in the family in a very angry way. I don't know about Erik, but I completely lost control myself. And in that time, I didn't separate. I knew my mother and my father. It was just adrenaline and fear and anger.
Lost control.
There is no explanation.
But
We don't offer one.
you had thought about this earlier because you had bought the guns several days before.
We knew that this could end, a violent confrontation could occur because my father had threatened my life.
You still think your father would have killed you for revealing the secret? You both still feel that?
There's no question.
Really?
I still believe that. I don't believe that he was in the process of killing us that moment, that evening.
Yeah.
But and I don't think that it might seem because there are so
Like, it wasn't right at that time, but maybe they were plotting it. Maybe they were going to do something to them. I fully believe that Jose was connected, powerful, had money, and if he wanted to make someone disappear, he probably could have. And higher ups, music executives, they've been known to be very inappropriate with minors over the years. And it's coming out now so more than ever that there are adults who like minors all over the entertainment industry. So I'm not surprised that Jose was with RCA Records because, it fits. Maybe he was groomed himself through, the record company and other people. I don't know. But it just, it makes sense to me that with his position and his power and his money, if he And if he was that desperate not to have his reputation ruined, remember he was running for Senate. He wanted to go to Florida and run for Senate. So this was, that was going to be coming in the works soon. So more power, more money, more access to things around him. So it could have easily, and it could have been even a platform to run on. Look, my son, my sons have gone missing, and oh me, oh my, and I'm all for children, and he could have spun it himself, and then the boys would be missing, and Jose would be in our Senate right now. So thank you, Eric and Lyle, from keeping him from running our government, because God knows we don't need another one like that. So anyway, moving on.
Few cases that come to the public's attention like this, that this has never occurred ever before in the country. And in fact, there are over 200 parricides a year that involve incest families. And so, I felt it completely then, and now I believe that, but I would not shoot my parents now, no matter what.
How now would you have resolved it? Now, what, almost 7 years later? What do you think you should
I
have done?
would have never told. I got Lyle into this. I went to him and I said, Lyle, I can't live anymore with what's going on, and got him involved. He was away to go. They had bought him a condominium. He was going to Princeton. He had all the money.
So it's your fault for telling your brother?
It's my
He thinks so. So Eric thinks it's his fault for telling Lyle, therefore Lyle intervening, and what happened happened. And Lyle blames himself because if you do recall during testimony, he found out that the things were happening with Erik when he was much younger, and he confronted his father about it. His father said, "Okay, I won't do it anymore. Gotcha." They never talked about it again. This was probably about when Erik was, I think, 8 years old, or Lyle maybe was about 8 years old, or a little older. He was older. So I think he was like maybe 10 and Lyle was 8, something along those lines. He said to his father, "Don't, I know what you're doing. Don't do that anymore." And his dad was like, "Okay." Obviously, we know that didn't stop because it continued until Erik was 18. So, yeah. But Lyle, my point is that Lyle believes that it was his fault because he didn't do more to stop it. He wasn't able to prevent it from happening. He wasn't able to protect his little brother when he tried. He did try, but y- Lyle was a child, and Jose obviously a very vindictive, sadistic man. So
fault. And I got him involved and said, I need your help. And 5 days later, my parents were dead.
So it's your fault?
That's completely my fault.
He was suicidal at the time, and it was just a last thing to reach out. And I obviously who was going to reach out to. And I decided to confront my father rather than just sort of not say anything and just have Erik and I leave, which if I could go back, that's what I would do. I would just say, Erik's old enough now, he wants to leave.
Have you forgiven yourself?
I don't think it's possible.
Lyle, are you at any kind of peace?
More so than maybe Erik, because at this point, for some reason, well before the verdict, I was resigned to bad things. And I have, I think, found a place where I can look forward and try to have hope and share myself more with people. And
Hope of what?
hope of living a life that I can be more proud of.
How
And
in prison?
you're confined, but there must be, even just in writing, people that need help.
If you can help them and convince a single person that has been through our situation that the last thing in the world they should do is act out violently, then you find meaning in your life.
If you could say something to your mother and your father, I'm sure you have in your own minds, what would you say?
I am so sorry. I forgive them completely for anything they have done to us. If I had one wish, it would be able to have one conversation with them or to change places with them.
I hope someday that I can be with them and have some sort of conversation about what happened. It is one of the awful things is that I can't, we couldn't communicate that weekend, and I can't. And just that I love them, and that I believe, despite everything that happened, that they really loved us, and that things just went awry.
Our interview is over. Deputies now arrive to take Erik and Lyle Menendez back to the cell blocks. They were handcuffed and chained for the long walk back. Their legs had been shackled throughout the interview. This had been one of their infrequent opportunities to see one another in jail. The guards would now take each of them to their separate cells and to the certainty of the rest of their lives in prison.
All right, so we're going to stop that there, but we're going to continue on with our what happened with them after they were convicted. So let's get back over to this article that we were reading. So that was obviously, a very in-depth uh, interview, very well done. So July 2nd, so just a few days after that, Judge Weisberg sentences them to life in prison. So Lyle was 28, Erik was 26 when they were sentenced. All right, so we're going to skip over to this. I'm going to be skipping, so apologies. This is People magazine and their online stuff. All right, so for more than 27 years, Erik and Lyle Menendez have been locked away, but they haven't escaped the public eye. But what is life really like for the notorious brothers? For one thing, they are housed. So this article, I should have said, was written in 2017. So at this point in time, they are not housed together yet. So they were separated for 22 years, which we will read. All right, so they hadn't seen each other. They were separated more than 500 miles apart. Lyle is housed at the Mule Creek State Prison in Lone, California, a small town near Sacramento, while Erik is incarcerated at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. But despite the distance, the brothers insist that they remain close. In a rare jailhouse interview, Lyle told People that the brothers still keep in touch. We write each other regularly. We even play chess through the mail, but it's a little slow, he says. Both brothers are active in prison life. Erik spends time with terminally ill prisoners. Lyle has been president of the inmate government for more than 15 years. The inmate government. For more than 15 years, he's president. And he runs a support group for prisoners who have endured childhood SA. We just keep trying to find something positive from the experiences that we had, Lyle told People. Both brothers remain married to women that they wed after their incarceration. Lyle married Rebecca Sneed in 2003, and she says that the marriage is healthy. Our interaction tends to be very free of distractions, and we probably have more intimate conversations than most married spouses do who are distracted by life's events, said Lyle. He continues on saying, we try and talk on the phone every day, sometimes several times a day. I have a very steady, involved marriage, and that helps sustain me and brings a lot of peace and joy. It's a counter to the unpredictable, very stressful environment here. So he has found support and love with Rebecca, and they've been married since 2003. It's coming up on their 19-year anniversary. 20, no, 21. They just had their 20th. All right, so our where were Erik? Erik is also married. He wed his wife Tammy Ruth Stackeman in 1999. The couple had been pen pals for several years, as Barbara Walters said, you guys get love letters, right? Well, she wasn't even writing as a love letter at first. She was just reaching out and saying that, she felt a connection. She felt, moved by their case. So she felt like reaching out. And therefore, they started writing. They became pen pals. And for several years, before they decided to wed in jail, they had a Twinkie as their wedding cake. Tammy's love has propelled me to become a better person, told Eric told People in a face-to-face interview. I want to be the greatest possible husband to her, and this affects the choices I make every day in prison. There's one thing missing in their relationships. The couples are not allowed to have intimate relations. Conjugal visits are prohibited for those sentenced to life without parole. Could you imagine if they do change the sentencing and they get to actually, be intimate with their wives finally? That would be so nice for them, I'm sure. um, all right. So, do the brothers feel remorse? Eric says he would give his life to change it. I talked to my mom. She knows my heart. I ask for forgiveness. Lyle said, "You are often defined by a few moments of your life, but that's not who you are in your life. Your life is your totality of it. You can't change it. You're stuck with the decisions you made." And now I'm going to swap over to this other People article because it gives us a little more detail here about their appeals process. So in 2023, so at this point now they're reunited. They did reunite. I don't know. I think it'll tell us in here. All right. So in 2023, Lyle and Eric's lawyers filed a petition to vacate the brothers' convictions in light of new evidence. A letter Eric wrote 8 months or 9 months before the homicides, and Roy Rossello's claims that he was drugged and essayed by Jose in the 90s or the 80s. Sorry. A year later, Los Angeles County District Attorney recommended that the Menendez brothers be resentenced. We've gone through that already. We've kind of read through some of his, I guess, George Gascon stuff and watched his press release or press conference. God, words aren't coming out right. All right, so they are currently awaiting a judge's ruling on the resentencing. They have the hearing coming up. All right, so Lyle and Eric's case and conviction have been the subject of several television projects over the years, from A&E's Menendez Brothers, Eric Tells All, which was in 2017, to Peacock's Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed in 2023. Their chilling true story is also the subject of Ryan Murphy's new Netflix show, Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. Hold on one second. Sorry. Okay. So they were subject of Brian Murphy's new show and streaming service and the streaming services documentary, The Menendez Brothers. So there's multiple shows and documentaries and things out there, and those I'm sure are not the only ones. They also made a lot of made for TV movies. If you recall, back in the 90s, we didn't have all the movie channels and stuff that we have now, and they would do made for TV movies, which were kind of like Lifetime movies, very like fluffy, fluffy kind of stuff. And but they did deal with like important things, and they made several made for TV movies on this. All right, so looking back at the trials, Eric and I and our family thought we were going into a manslaughter case with with a district attorney that understood the traumatic impact that intimate violence creates in a person, Lyle reflected in the 2024 Fox Nation docuseries Menendez Brothers Victims or Villains. So there's another documentary. And we ended up with the same sentence as a serial life ender. From their time spent in prison to their marriages, here's everything you need to know about the Menendez brothers. And I'm actually, mm, yeah, I'll finish this part. Okay. So for more than 20 years, it was 22 to be more precise, Lyle and Erik were imprisoned separately. Lyle in Mule Creek State Prison, and then Erik about 500 miles away from the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in, excuse me, San Diego County. The brothers didn't speak for years through their communicated letters, or they didn't speak for years, only through their communicated letters. I don't know. And they played trust through the mail. Our start to prison life was tremendously painful. My brother actually went on a hunger strike to try to keep us together, he told Barbara Walters, but we never saw him say that. So I don't know. They must have edited that out. In February 2018, Lyle was transferred to another housing unit at Richard J. Donovan, and in April of that same year, Erik moved into the same unit. So in February 2018, they were finally reunited, which I have a clip here for you. One second, hold on. All right, I just wanted to get the screen correct. All right, so here we go. This is a clip about their reunion.
The GMA exclusive first look, Lyle and Erik Menendez reuniting behind bars. The brothers who killed their parents in 1989 had not seen each other in more than 20 years, and now we're hearing from Lyle for the first time about that emotional reunion. And you have more on that, Amy?
That's right, Robin. For more than 2 decades, Lyle and Erik Menendez have served their time in separate prisons. But earlier this month, Lyle was transferred to the same facility, even the same housing unit as his little brother Erik. And now for the first time since being reunited, Lyle is speaking exclusively with Daily Mail TV, and we have the very first look.
22 years, exactly.
22 years since the last time Lyle and Erik Menendez were face to face after being convicted of murdering their parents in their upscale Beverly Hills home.
I remember firing directly at him.
At the time, speaking to Barbara Walters, Erik then dreading the possibility of a life away from his brother.
We will spend the rest of our life in prison. If we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again. And that would be very, very difficult to live through.
They would, until earlier this month, Lyle finally transferred to the same Southern California prison as his brother. That grin on
Look at him, that smile. He's so happy to be transferred to where his brother is.
his face saying it all. And now he's speaking out to Daily Mail TV for the first time about that reunion.
By the way, he looks great bald. And for Jose and Kitty to have been so, against his baldness, I just want to say F you, because he looks great.
I ended up bursting into tears, which is quite an emotional moment, almost unexpectedly. So I think for me, I thought the day just being numb. It was just something I wasn't sure was ever going to happen. It was just a remarkable moment.
It's very emotional. Lyle was not sure how he was going to respond to this day. There was a lot of trepidation, a lot of emotion. All this time apart from his younger brother, he said, has been like an open wound. The fact that they are now finally back together, serving out the rest of their prison sentences, is finally starting to heal the process.
The brothers have maintained that the killing was an act of desperation after years of sexual abuse at the hands of their father. Abuse they say their mother ignored and that they feared for their lives.
I thought they were going ahead with their plan to kill us.
But Lyle now saying if he could do it all again, he wouldn't resort to murder.
If I could take my consciousness now and go back, I would have gone to the police and taken my chances in exposing what was happening.
We did it.
And as for that damning confession Erik made to his then therapist, an admission that seethed its way back into pop culture last year as part of Law & Order True Crime, the Menendez murders.
You told me everything. How you shot your parents, where you bought the shotguns.
Oh, God, Erik. I had to tell somebody. I wanted to kill myself.
Wish that he had, just talked to me or, spent more time just going to his parish priest and not ended up in sort of this therapist's hands.
Lyle says he's forgiven his brother Erik and that their close relationship has remained a constant.
Erik and I have never had any moments of animosity or anything like that. I love him deeply.
Now, Erik says he is not ready to speak yet, but the brothers, once housed more than 500 miles apart, get to see each other every single day, and that's something their family is also very happy about. The complete interview will air on Daily Mail TV today and tomorrow, so you can check your local listings.
That is some story. Amy, thanks very much.
All right. So they were reunited very happily in 2018, and they are in the same unit eventually. Later that year, they moved into the same unit. So they're in the same housing unit. And I'm sure they see each other every day. And I think it's important to note, too, that they have been doing good things on their own without being with one another. But I think together they've been even more active in their involvement with helping prisoners and rehabilitation and other programs and things like that. So I think they've gone above and beyond, both of them, in that regard. All right, so when the Menendez brothers reunited, they burst into tears, and Lyle whispered, "Finally," he told Daily Mail TV. "It was just a remarkable moment," he added. "It was just something I wasn't sure was ever going to happen." In 1999, Eric married his longtime pen pal, Tammy Ruth Sockman. We know that. Tammy wrote and they share a stepdaughter together. The other article didn't mention that, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. Tammy came in to the relationship with a daughter from a previous marriage, and Eric is now stepfather to stepdaughter Talia. Tammy also wrote a book titled "They Said We'd Never Make It: My Life with Eric Menendez," about their relationship and experiences. Eric also took up painting and even gifted a portrait to comedian Kathy Griffin. I don't know if you guys remember, but Kathy Griffin was like reporting on this way back when on, I think, MTV. She was reporting on it, and or VH1 or something like that. And because they actually had like shows that I don't know what's on there now. I think it's all like Teen Mom stuff, but before they had like news anchors and stuff like that. So she was anchoring and she made some really nasty remarks about the brothers. So I don't know if gifting her a portrait was kind of like a jab at her or what. So I think that's kind of funny that they gifted her a portrait. But anyways, and they've also they've done other things regarding prison reform and helping other inmates. Eric says, "Being arrested was such a relief. My life was over and I was glad. Once I was arrested and put into prison, that person who I was began to emerge again. I find it hard, or I had it hard. I had to find it again. Oh my God. I had to find it again. My brain flip-flops things all the time. So yeah, again, with the stating that he was so overcome with grief and guilt, and it was affecting him very traumatically. Lyle served as president of the inmate government at Mule State Creek Prison before being transferred and has worked in a support group for other prisoners who endured SA. From 96 to 2001, he was married to Anna Erickson. So they did get married, the woman that he was talking about in that video. However, they did not stay married. So 2 years later, he married Rebecca Sneed, who he is still with today, and they have a healthy relationship, according to them. "I have a very steady, involved marriage, and that helps sustain me and brings a lot of peace and joy. It's a counter to the unpredictable, very stressful environment here." So we read that already. All right, so this is now ABC News, and Nuri Naklakal, I don't know, somebody, an ABC News freelance reporter and executive producer of the Menendez and Menudo Boys Betrayed documentary, has visited Lyle Menendez multiple times at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. She stressed that Lyle and Erik have spent their decades in prison rehabilitating themselves as well as helping other inmates. And here you can see a more up to date photo. These are the booking photos taken October 10th, 2024. So these are the most recent, taken last month. So there you have it. They have aged, but I think they're aged pretty well. They're in their 50s now, right? So Lyle and his brother spent their whole adult lives trying to counsel other victims of SA and start programs in the prison. Even though they had no chance of parole, they really felt that the prison system could be improved. How awesome is that? That they weren't doing this for glory for anything. They were doing it because they saw a problem and they wanted to fix it. Eric Menendez has provided hospice care to inmates, their attorney said, while for the last 20 years, Lyle Menendez, fellow inmates have elected him as the representative for the prison administration. He's like a soft spoken CEO who is very busy with multiple projects. This Neary person said of Lyle. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name because you try it. Ynclan. Unklin? Unklin? That's really, that's a weird, yeah, I can't. Okay. He wants to talk about prison reform, says Neary. He would talk to me about the college courses he was taking. I was really impressed that someone in their early 50s in prison without any chance of parole would want to take calculus and statistics to continue bettering themselves. And that just goes to show that, like, the one thing Jose did right for his children was to make them succeed. And he didn't do it in the right ways. Let me be clear. He did not teach to be successful in the right ways, but he did ingrain in them. You have to, keep working hard, keep trying until you are successful and, having that kind of business oriented, see a problem, fix it mentality that has led them to be the people that they are in prison. So, that's like the one good thing I think they got from Jose there. All right, so with freedom now a possibility, Neary described this as an emotional and tense time for Lyle. For the first time in decades, he actually feels like there's a glimmer of hope that the two of them might get home to their families one day. Path 1, habeas corpus petition, One Track to Freedom, is the brothers' habeas corpus petition, which was filed last year for a review of new evidence not presented at trial. One piece of evidence is allegations from Roy Rosello, a former member of boy band Menudo, who revealed in the 2023 docuseries that he was AR'd by music executive Jose Menendez. The second piece of evidence is a letter Erik Menendez wrote to his cousin 8 months before the homicides, detailing his alleged A. The cousin testified about the alleged A at trial, but the letter, which would have corroborated the cousin's testimony, wasn't unearthed until years later, just several years ago from now. So obviously, they've been in prison for 35 years, so it's taken many years for this to come out. And that's according to their attorney, Mark Garagos. Through this petition, the court could change their convictions. The next hearing is set for November 20. Is it the 25th or 26th? I thought it was the 26th. Path 2, resentencing recommendation, goes before Judge Parole Board. So that is what I talked about in my breaking. The DA talked about this, or the governor broke his silence on the clemency. So the governor says, no, I'm not going to rule on any kind of clemency right now. I'm going to let the new district attorney work on this. So as you know, the former LA district attorney, George Gascon, put in the recommendation for resentencing, but he lost the election. So he is no longer going to be the district attorney in LA. The new DA, whose name escapes me for some reason right now, he's coming in um, December 8th to start getting acclimated to the position. So he's not even going, this December 11th parole hearing or resentencing hearing, sorry, and whether he's going to go before a parole board or not. That is obviously, December 11th, December 8th. Not a whole lot of time in between there, so I don't think the new DA is going to get caught up in the case in that short amount of time. So, unfortunately, I do believe that this particular hearing is going to get rescheduled, but they might go forward with it and it might be a nothing burger and they say like, oh, okay, we'll just reschedule for another day. So a second path is through resentencing. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon announced in an October 25th court filing that he was recommending the brothers' sentence of life without the possibility of parole be removed. They should instead be sentenced for manslaughter. I don't know why he said that. It should be sentenced for this is incorrect. He's saying they should be sentenced for homicide or for manslaughter, not for homicide. Manslaughter, they would have been let out like years ago if they got manslaughter. This information is incorrect. They probably 50 years to life was probably the possible sentence. I don't know why they're telling us that because they George Gascon wanted manslaughter. So, I don't know. All right, because both brothers were under 26 at the time of the crimes, with the new sentence, they would be eligible for parole immediately. The DA's office said its resentencing recommendations take into account factors including the defendant's ages, psychological trauma, or physical A that contributed to carrying out the crime and their rehabilitation in prison. Gascon said at a news conference, "We appreciate what they did while they were in prison. While I disapprove of the way they handled their A, we hope that they not only have learned, which appears that they have, but that if they could get reintegrated into our community, that they continue to do public good," which there's no reason to think otherwise because look what they've accomplished in prison. Gascon's recommendation next goes in front of a Los Angeles Superior Court judge who will weigh factors including the crime, the brothers' records while incarcerated, and the positive impact that they've had in the prison. And that hearing is going to take place December 11th. Again, the new DA isn't coming in until December 8th. So there's not 3 days time to get, well, really 2 days time to get caught up. And probably not going to happen. All right. So the judge will also review facts that were not available at the time of the brothers' conviction. The judge might also consider the science of young boys and young men being essayed, according to Buckmeyer, who is a ABC News legal contributor. He continues on saying, how they respond, how they react to the A, and how that might not have been information that was readily available at the time of sentencing that could have changed the sentence. A hearing is set for December. If the judge agrees to resentencing, the case next goes to the parole board. Even though the judge would have already evaluated the facts and factors, the parole board is going to do their own investigation, according to Buckmeyer. The brothers and their relatives will also get the opportunity to address the parole board, Buckmeyer said. In this case, the relatives are not just the family of the perpetrators, but also the family of the victims, so they have their own rights based on both capacities. One relative, their uncle Milton Anderson, wants the brothers to stay behind bars. This is Kitty's brother, stating that he doesn't believe they were aid and instead took their lives out of greed. But nearly 24 family members are in support of the brothers and have been advocating for their release, and they have been advocating for quite some time. This is his cousin Diane Vandermolen, and is that her mom? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who these two are, but oh, Arnold Vandermolen, nephew of Kitty Menendez, right, talks with Kitty Menendez's sister Joan. That is Joan. Okay, so that's Joan, Kitty's sister, at a news conference being held by Los Angeles County District Attorney Gascon on October 24th. So that was them at the press conference. They are survivors and deserve a chance to rebuild their lives. Their cousin Brian Anderson Jr. told reporters in October, they're no longer a threat to society. But if they were to come to my house, knock on my door, I would answer that door. I would welcome them in with huge hugs. My wife would make them a dinner and I'd give them a pillow and a place to sleep, Anderson said. A hearing, I mean, that just goes to show, like, I trust them. I would trust them with my life. They could sleep under my roof and I wouldn't flinch. So, what does that say? A hearing before the parole board would likely take at least 6 months to schedule, according to the California Department of Corrections. If the parole board recommends release, the final decision then goes to California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has since now spoken out and said, I'm not going to make any kind of rulings on clemency until the new governor has a chance to take a look at the case. If paroled, the brothers would be subjected to monitoring and check-ins, according to Bruckmeyer. Parole often comes with conditions like maintaining a job and avoiding using illegal substances. Path number 3 is clemency. October 28th, the Menendez brothers' defense opened a third track to potential freedom by submitting a request to the governor for clemency. The district attorney announced days later that he supports the brothers' bid for clemency, which would commute their sentence or grant a pardon. So that was George Gascon who said, I support this. Newsom is first eligible to weigh in on the clemency application on November 7th. The governor's office said this is a confidential process. Newsom is not required to review the application, and there is no time limit for the review. If the governor approves clemency, the case would still likely go before the parole board. So there's no time limit. So he could really make a decision tomorrow or years from now. It really, if everything else falls through and he's the last hope, then, it could be all up to him. Unfortunately, we don't want that to happen. So let's hope that one of these other pathways works first. All right, so if the governor approves clemency, the case would still likely go before the parole board. The governor's office intends to treat the application like any other case, an official at the office said. Nobody is getting special treatment. So there's that. And then finally, I wanted to leave you guys with this last clip here. This is a glimpse into the Menendez brothers' prison life. So this was taken in 2020. Well, this is an updated video they've added to it, but what we're going to see is video from 2020 from the brothers working on their the brothers aren't in the video, but it's about their project of beautification on the grounds of the prison. So
in 2020, ABC 10 News got a rare look inside the Donovan State Prison where the Menendez brothers are being held. It was the first time reporters saw Lyle Menendez since he was sentenced for killing his parents. At the time, the brothers were painting a massive mural as part of a prison rehabilitation program. Our Austin Grabish shows us a glimpse of what the life has been like for the brothers behind bars.
That's actually not a bad starting point right there. Okay.
Healing through painting.
That's why this is always the ugly part.
Therapy.
Not quite the orange I was looking for.
Even an escape.
Just do my thing. I know what it's going to look like when it's done.
Robert Beckett is doing time for murder.
I'm painting from what I remember, more than anything, more than a picture.
Brahman Kiri runs spiritual outreach programs at Donovan State Prison.
I would come every week and it was just like grey, and I was like, how are we going to access our heart when there's no colour on the yard?
She says 2 of Donovan's most infamous inmates, the Menendez brothers, had an idea.
I spoke to Lyle and Erik, who had been thinking about a beautification thing where we're actually going to plant grass and get flowers and all that kind of stuff soon.
Erik and Lyle Menendez rose to fame after murdering their parents in their Beverly Hills home in 1989. The criminal case captivated the nation. The brothers alleging their father had sexually abused them, and their mother did nothing to stop it. After spending 20 years apart, they were reunited in 2018 at Donovan. At the time, Lyle told the Daily Mail he never thought he'd see his brother again.
And the bursting of tears was just quite an emotional moment.
In 2020, the brothers would only speak off camera to ABC 10 News. But a beaming Lyle let us show him pose with his painting group. Inmates told us how the brothers helped their own rehabilitation. Michael Robinson says Erik suggested he get involved with the mural project.
He helped me in a lot of ways, man. Mentally,
help me ground myself.
Brightening up a dark place.
I've been in prison for 27 years, and everything has been hard, concrete. And I just wanted to soften the place up a little bit.
And the brothers were doing more than just art. Believing they'd spend the rest of their lives behind barbed wire, they were trying to make the prison more livable, even organizing a fundraiser for grass in the yard while still working on the mural.
There's got to be consequences, but there's also got to be the love.
But even painting can be a tough sell to prisoners.
Well, I was a little apprehensive at first, having been in prison for some time. We're unfortunately, it builds a little skepticism.
Jonathan Marvin says it's rehabilitation he never thought he'd see.
But to have something like this, take place is pretty mind-blowing.
I do it for therapy. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me humble.
It's giving me a peace of mind.
Ruben Rodillo was preparing to get out of Donovan when we met him. He had spent 25 years behind bars.
Don't be afraid of me. I'm going to be a good neighbor, and thanks to these projects like this, it helps absolutely.
Jim, in 2020, when we aired this story, the Menendez brothers thought they had exhausted all of their appeals and were going to die inside Donovan. Tonight, it seems TikTok, new evidence, and public pressure may have changed the brothers' fate. The LA District Attorney today pointed out they have been model prisoners and on a journey of redemption while behind bars here at Donovan. Jim?
Fascinating glimpse into their lives. We understand that the artist who involved with them actually saw, of course, what happened today. Any reaction from her?
Yeah, we got reaction from her in Australia. That's where she is right now, actually. And she told us that she worked with the Menendez brothers for 6 years and believes they have served their time. She thinks they will make great contributions to the community if they are released. Jim?
Thank you, Austin.
Release I've been trying to post stuff on X every day to Governor Newsom, even after he made his announcement that he wasn't going to make a decision.
Erik and I killed our parents together.
Stop.
So
Hey, why does it always play when I don't ask it to? So annoying. What was I saying now? Anyways, I liked that video, and I thought it was great because it actually showed not even Erik and Lyle doing the programs, but other prisoners, other inmates who have benefited from these programs that they have instituted in their prison system. And it's just amazing the things that they're trying to accomplish in prison for no reason at all other than to help people and to make their conditions better for everyone. So I thought that was a good way to close it out. So that's now kind of what's been going on with them over the last 30, almost 35 years. So I was saying I'm posting Gavin Newsom, or tagging Gavin Newsom like every day, trying to remind him that these boys are survivors and they should go home. So I like the hashtag send them home. I use that a lot with my posts. All right, anyways, I will end this here. We're going to the next video. I said already, we're going to go into the key players. So some of the key witnesses that we know of, where they've gone off to, what's happened to them, like the attorneys, the judge, a lot of the witnesses. So we'll get into that, and then we will also then talk about, or go through in detail, the habeas corpus and what their grounds are for, and their arguments for overturning their conviction. So we'll go through that as well, and then we'll be all caught up. So thank you guys again so much for watching. Thank you for joining me and allowing me to share this kind of hodgepodge of information for you. But I wanted to kind of give you an overview of what it was like from when they were incarcerated to now. So hopefully that was at least, worthy of trying to explain how much the boys have done, but probably not. All right. So anyway, the brothers, not the boys. Sorry. I'm really going to try on that. All right. So I will see you guys in the next one. Be sure that you have your notifications on. Sorry about the last one where my OBS system just decided to forget that I had a mic. So here we are recording again. It was a better episode this time. I'm going to tell you it is because you never will hear the other one. So there you have it. Hit the like on your way out if you don't mind, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye now.